Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Underhood Show, presented by Mel Hambelton Ford. My name is Phil Nightingale. Josh Proud. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning.
I didn't know it was our day to wear purple. Did you?
It's accidents happen.
I guess it's Who's Your Purple Saturday is what it is by chance.
There you go.
Anyway, everybody, welcome to the show. It's a call-in show, 316-462-3673. Anything ailing your car, tires, brakes, batteries, whatever it might be. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know what's going on in your mind in the automobile world. You got something you don't understand about your car, or you just want to start a discussion about anything in the automobile world. We could love to have that discussion and everything else too. And for each and every caller, you get a great price package. I know, Josh, sometime we need to reevaluate that number and see if it's still that $130.
Years ago, we had the little postcards made up that we send out. So if you have called in before, you understand what that looks like. But just about running out of those, and so I think after that we're going to do something.
To redesign it.
Yeah, we're going to do something a little different. I think is where we're headed next with that. So
all right, we'll have to get guys down at Big Corner Creative help us design up a new postcard because there was giveaway cards.
There was a lot of those made up at one time. And so
who did that?
Yeah. But for each and every caller that calls in, we'll mail it out to you. But it consists of the works, which is an oil change and tire rotation. We use Motorcraft oil and filter products here at Mel Hambelton Ford, which I want to talk about Motorcraft oil filters here after a little bit. We looked at that the other day. But then also with that package, you're going to get complete nitrogen for your tires. So you get all the great benefits that nitrogen has to offer. And we were just talking about that the other day too, about how we don't really give nitrogen as much love as it deserves, for sure.
Agreed.
And then $10 to Mel's Diner, so you can get yourself something to eat and drink while you're here with us at the Big Corner. And then a BG Products package, which consists of a can of MOA or motor oil additive for your engine oil, and then CF5 for your fuel system. Again, just getting that vehicle geared up and ready to go for that next 5,000 miles of driving. And I forgot about the multi-point.
Oh, you did, dude. I missed that too.
That's
kind of pretty important.
Yeah, it is very important.
So hey, let's get the phones ringing. 316-462-3673. That comes right to the front desk here at the dealership. Tell the gals you want to get patched into the podcast here, and we'll get your question and of course get you that great price package and everything else too, Josh. So sound like you got a few things on your agenda today, Josh.
Well, yeah, but then again, it is always a call-in show, and I've been squirreled before. You get to go on, you get a list of things that you want to talk about and go over, and then the show heads off into the ditch, and here we go.
No, it never does go in the ditch, does it?
Which that's okay too. It's really for the callers and whatever they want to talk about or know about or be a part of. That's what it's all about, for sure.
So anyway, good morning, Jeff. Thanks for tuning in again too. I hope we got your. I know we got your expedition all dialed in and ready to go for you. So from that part. So anyway, Josh, what's on your agenda?
Yeah. So we brought some filters, or had some filters presented to us yesterday with through Ford, and they're I'm sure out there looking at the dollar that they're spending on a product as well. And so I do believe that going through an assembly line, I mean, if you save a penny per unit built over the course of time, that's huge.
I agree.
But there's just something to be said about an OEM part. You get involved in, or I get involved in stuff all the time about a consumer really kind of looking for a deal. But I had a couple of comparisons to that that happened to pop up this week with people having their vehicle in the aftermarket industry or their aftermarket world, and so they were at other shops. One of them was in New Mexico from that side, and then one of them was here local, and it was at a like I said, an independent repair shop, and they go through and they give them a total and on what it's going to cost to fix it. And this one happened to be an Explorer that needed a water pump, and then that water pump, in order to put a water pump in it, you got to remove the engine. Which everybody instantly thinks, to pull the engine out of a vehicle for a water pump is kind of unheard of.
It's crazy to think you got to go do that.
But I will say that the odds of a water pump breaking nowadays versus years ago is completely different.
Oh, I remember in my dad's shop, we were putting water pumps on every day.
Well, and I think about that, like alternators, starters,
We don't do that anymore, do we?
You just
No.
don't replace those components near enough. Well, anyways, they've on some of these models they've put the water pump as part of the timing cover, or excuse me, that runs off the timing chain, which is behind the timing cover. In order to get the timing cover off the vehicle, you got to pull the vehicle or the engine out of the vehicle in order to do that.
Yeah.
And
Seems kind of crazy, doesn't it?
but
But again,
yeah,
we were putting water pumps on, I think back in the day, every 10, 15,000 miles. And now we got cars going 150 before
yeah,
putting water
100,
pumps on. So
150 easy. And then the other side of that, if you maintain your coolant and the pH level stays good, like that's really not a concern or wear long term. But
because
I
that's what
guess
happens. That pH level starts eating away at the seals and everything else. And that's where she goes.
yeah. And so where I was headed with this is seeing both of those estimates on the independent repair facilities and what they were versus what the estimate would have been through our facility. Like everybody's misconception of the dealership's higher priced or aftermarket parts are cheaper, or like that's not it was amazing how close they were. And I've got a third example of that is us putting a windshield in a vehicle versus a very large national competitor. I mean, we were we were $50 less than what they were
Yeah.
to do the job. And it just, that conception of dealerships are higher. Now, what I will say is just the price of goods. I mean, even tires or windshields, or you're comparatively over 10 years ago, yeah, those consumables have gone up considerably.
Yeah. And I'll give you some of my opinion on that because as long as I've been doing this. Anyway, morning, Rex. Thanks for joining us, buddy. Anyway, so let's go back to in the 80s when I was really deep in this business and everything else too, getting started and everything else too. The manufacturers had a warranty labor rate, and every job had to be, you had to prove to the manufacturer what you were charging the retail consumer was the same. They would not let you have a variable labor rate. They wouldn't let you charge a cheaper rate for an oil change or whatever. And then finally, I'm thinking, Josh, I'm trying to remember when this was. I think it was late 80s, early 90s. They finally started letting us have variable labor rates. And they didn't compare us to the warranty rate that they paid us, which blows me away anyway, because the warranty rate's always about 70% paid to our technicians and what it really should be because
Yeah.
of their deal. But they finally, the manufacturers let up and let us start having that variable labor where we could be competitive with oil changes. We could be competitive with maintenance services, things that we couldn't be competitive back in then because, yeah, so back then were the dealerships higher? You bet. And back then, too, the independent repair shops could charge less per hour because their overhead wasn't as much and everything else, too. But now now they understand what it takes to run one of these stores and everything else like that. And that's why those repair bills were, that estimate from that independent shop was real close
Yeah.
because the dealerships are very competitive now. Uh,
Well, and then the other side of that I think maybe played a part into that is years ago, the amount of warranty work that a dealership had to do or was out there for a dealership, like that's what their focus was to take care of cars under warranty. And then customers, the number of trips that a customer would have to a service center when their vehicle was in that warranty period is much greater than it is now. I mean, the cars are way more reliable. And so the dealership, I mean, they do kind of have to shift their focus from that warranty repair to taking care of the customer on the maintenance side of things, because the vehicles are more reliable and the number of visits that are expected to happen in ownership under that warranty period is much less than what it used to be.
Cutting tenths
Mhm.
of what it used to be and everything. And you're right. That's back then in the 80s and 90s. I mean, we did nothing but the shop. I'd say 90% of the work in the shop was warranty work.
Yeah.
It wasn't customer pay work. It wasn't internal, but it was about 90% warranty because these cars weren't as reliable. We had more repairs and things like that on those cars. Now I'm gonna go another step further. It's just like parts.
Yeah.
I helped run Halstead Auto Parts there at Halstead with Don Davison. And back then, the aftermarket parts, I'm telling you, were probably better. They're not today. That's
Yeah.
just my opinion from different things that I see. And, I have to step into one of those parts houses every now and then and stuff. And I cringe with the things I see and stuff and everything else too. But there's nothing better than a manufactured part now because the independent world will take a brake pad, say, and they'll mess around with that brake pad and get it to fit 5 different cars or 10 different cars or whatever. It's not exactly 100% on all the cars where the manufacturers can't do that and won't do that because
Well,
they
and-
want to make that part to match that car.
Yeah, and they're not confined by, okay, that it has to meet this specification. In
There
other
you
words,
go.
it has to stop this vehicle in this distance, or whatever. But when you put something aftermarket on it, you alter the integrity of the way the car was built or designed.
Yeah.
Um, and then I always when I go around and talk to the Votex and the schools and stuff like that, just about the difference between working in a dealership environment versus working at an independent garage. One of my biggest things is, on the independent sides, I think a lot of those technicians in those environments, they're the ones that are actually looking up the parts, and they're the ones that are, and not a lot of independent garages. I haven't seen very many of them that have an actual inventory of parts.
No.
So they're calling a parts house, typically going to be, an O'Reilly's or an AutoZone or whatever.
Right.
And not to knock any of those establishments, because there's a need for everything. But if you pick up the phone and you call down there, you're getting somebody that's fresh out of high school, maybe in college, and honestly, he could care less whether you get the right part for that car that actually
He's
fits
just
it
there
or
putting
not.
his time in.
Yeah, he's there. He's worried about what he's doing tonight, on a date, rather than what you do, versus the amount of training that our parts guys go through to ensure that we get the right part, but then also just having the inventory right here available to go on that car. uh, you know where we get in a lot of different situations where it's not the biggest question is not, I mean, and everybody wants to know how much it costs. When something's broke, they want to know what's wrong with it, how much is it going to cost, and how long is it going to take to
How soon
fix.
I get it back, right?
And once you answer those three questions, that brings so much relief to the consumer. And when that part is available, I get in a lot of situations on a daily basis, and I know you do too as well, that the how much is it going to cost and what's wrong with it really takes a back burner to how soon can I get it back, especially when you're dealing with a fleet customer or a business from that side. I mean, they need that vehicle to make money.
Yeah.
And so that's huge too, to be able to have those components right here for them and be able to get them taken care of.
Yeah, I agree. And a few comments coming in here too from Chris. Like he says, Chris Kratzer, he runs a shop over there in south side of Wichita and does a great job over there and everything else too. But like he says, I install OE part like a starter alternator or something electrical because I have learned there's a big difference in quality.
Well,
And I agree with you, Chris, 100%. They're used, like I said, years ago, back in the 80s when I was in that parts house, it was almost like the aftermarket had a better part. Uh, I remember just like shocks. We would, of course, we don't put shocks on anymore either because how good they've become and everything else too from that part. But the quality is so much better in that in the
OEM,
manufacturer's
yeah.
part.
And then, you know, another thing to go along with that is the labor to back it up. If you if you put it on and it breaks, 30, 60, 90 a year down the road, what's that look like?
Well,
Who's responsible for that?
I'm thinking Chris's situation. The reason he's doing that because if that part breaks, the consumer's not looking at the part that broke; they're looking at you, the shop,
Yeah, you
and you're taking the
misinstalled
bad
it,
rep.
you did something wrong with
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
you're taking the bad rap. So in turn, taking and putting a quality part on it, so your customer's taken care of. That part's going to work, and it's got a better quality behind it, and it's going to be just a better experience overall for you as a shop owner, and it's also better for the consumer. And the way today is and stuff, we got to take care of all of our customers the best way we possibly can from that part. Anyway, we got a caller coming in.
We
right?
do. Yep. We're going to go to the phones. Let's go to the phones and talk to Daryl. Daryl, you're on live with Under the Hood. Go ahead.
Yes, I like to ask a question about a Ranger. It's got a 6-shift, 2.3 liter engine in it. And lately, whenever I drive up to a stop sign, I shifted into low gear, and I'm having a harder time shifting it into low gear. Sometimes it goes uneasy, and it's getting harder. Is there something, an additive I can put in, or is this something beginning to be major?
How many miles you got on this thing, Daryl?
About 80,000.
Yeah. So there is a manual transmission service that BG offers, and then there's a synchro shift additive that goes in with that service. But I would almost venture to guess that you have a synchronizer that is starting to deteriorate. And honestly, I mean, once you get to a certain point on that, there's really not going to be an additive that's going to make that better. It would just be a matter of having to replace that synchronizer. But it's only into first, and it's downshifting into first, right?
Yeah, it's only first gear.
But you don't have any problem upshifting through any of the other gears?
No.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's just beginning. I noticed lately it's beginning to get harder to shift into first gear sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works fine.
And if memory serves me correct, I think we've serviced that manual transmission on that truck before, haven't we?
Yes, I've
Yeah.
had oil put in. Yeah, oil changed on it before.
Well, yeah, I meant the actual transmission though. Service the manual transmission.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we had, and I'm guessing that the synchronizer inside the transmission is just worn out. And
Okay.
it would be a matter of disassembling the transmission and replacing that synchronizer to be able to fix it.
And the amount of money that takes and everything else like that, Daryl, I'd wait till it got a little bit hard. I'd wait till it starts grinding going into first gear instead of just being a little bit difficult to get into first gear before I would start spend the amount of money it's going to take that transmission out and tear it apart and put that new synchronizer in there. That's just my opinion. Someone else might give you a different opinion, whatever, but I would wait to spend that money until it actually got to where it was having to grind when you were going into first gear. And once it started doing that, then I would think I would look at trying to do something. I don't know how you think about that either.
Yeah, I mean, it really just kind of depends on what your intent is with the truck, how long you're planning on keeping it, things like that. But I'm guessing it will go quite a ways, just being hard to get into first for sure.
Yeah.
I guess the good thing is that it's only just downshifting into first, and you're not having any issues, going through and upshifting through any of the other gears.
So if you just start off in neutral and start the car, and then you turn around and put it in gear, does it go into gear okay on that side of it? It's just a downshift when it's going into first.
It's just when I go into first gear, right? That's the only time I have any trouble.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's my opinion, Darryl. I would wait till that thing got a little worse, so it was grinding before I would waste the money on it. But again, everybody's different. If you want to get it fixed, I'm sure we can fix it. That's for sure.
Certainly help you out with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks for the call, Daryl.
Uh-huh.
All right, 316-462-3673. Hey, anything ailing your car, tires, brakes, batteries, whatever it might be, love to hear from you. And we'll try to help you figure out what's going on in your car, or you want to talk about anything in the automobile world. Let's fire it off. Let's get a debate going. How about that? So anyway, we were talking about I think we've kind of covered all that with the aftermarket parts versus OEM parts and pricing and all that kind of stuff. And again, the way this whole world is, there's a lot of places you can get your car fixed, and you just got to find that great relationship where you feel you're taken care of and everything else too from that part. So anyway, Josh, what else? You had some other things on your agenda.
Nitrogen was definitely one of the other things that I think we need to.
We haven't talked about that for a while either.
It's definitely been quite a while. It's one of those things that I do believe we get caught up in a lot of things like this, is that when it's part of your day to day, you just kind of take it for granted almost that the consumers know about it. The other thing that bugs me to death is acronyms for things in this industry.
We have a few, don't we?
I mean, and then what's crazy when you start talking about acronyms, on the service side of things. I mean, the workshop may have one acronym for it, the parts department has another acronym for it, and the technician may have a third acronym for it, and it's all the same freaking thing. And it's like, man, and I get it too, with all the different modules and things in these vehicles that are part of it. But and then you just talk to somebody that is not from the industry, and he gone.
Well, and I use my analogy, for example. Let's use kind of an extreme, that if all of a sudden someday that you need to have heart surgery, you're going to be very nervous, not know where to go, not going to know what responses or anything else like that. And I got a couple of buddies just went through that scary situation.
Yeah.
not knowing how it's going to do, don't know all the expectations, don't know what's going to happen. Your adrenaline's, your anxiety is getting to you, everything else like that. But those doctors and nurses do that every day, and that's their normal routine. It's just like eating a sandwich or whatever it
Yep.
might be. It's just that simple and easy for them because they do it all the time and they're in that every day. We're not. And it's the same difference getting your car fixed is, your expectations of not knowing how you're going to get treated, what's going to happen, what's just like you said, how much it's going to cost, how quick can I get it, and from that part. But
What's wrong with it? Yep.
yeah,
That's what the consumers, typically want to know. And then once you're able to answer those questions,
yeah.
once you answer the unknown, it becomes a little less intimidating, I guess. Is
Okay,
the
we got
best
off.
way to
We,
put it.
went,
Yeah,
there's-
we did.
we
Yeah,
went
we
right
did.
in the ditch, Josh.
That was your fault.
I know. Anyway, the nitrogen.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of nitrogen. I think it's a great thing. Years ago, it was not very competitive for us to use it. Now today, it is very competitive and stuff. Let's just say competitive, very price effective for us to use it in your tires. And right now, every car tire setting out there, any pneumatic tire is leaking air. I promise you, it's leaking air at some rate or somewhere, somewhere for you can't seal that tire up 100% where it doesn't lose that air. And the biggest thing is like today. Yesterday it was 110.
Yeah.
This morning it's 73 degrees. I promise you, if you have compressed air in your tires, that you lost anywhere from 3 to 5 pounds from that 110 degrees down to that 73 degrees. That's one thing nitrogen doesn't do. Nitrogen doesn't really change that much with temperature, and it keeps your tires at a constant pressure.
And I think where a consumer can notice that the most is if you have the nitrogen in your tires. I mean, almost all cars now have tire pressure monitoring systems in it, and a lot of them will give you individual pressures of each tire, and you can, on a hot day like yesterday, if your car was in the garage, I mean, you could put it on that screen to where you're watching individual tire pressures, and you could go drive that car. And I mean, each one of those pressures would grow by 4, 5, 6 psi.
Yeah.
But you think about how it changes the dynamics of that tire, adding that pressure into it, and where the wear patches are going to be, or where the wear pattern is going to be on that tire. An overinflated tire is going to wear the center of that tread more. And when you're talking, $12, $13, $14, $2,000 for a set of tires for a vehicle, like, it makes a difference long term, how long that tire is going to last.
And exactly, keeping the right proper pressure in there is going to keep your contact patch even or smooth and better. So when you're braking, as you're accelerating, you're on wet surfaces, whatever it might be, it's going to give you just a better feel. But the biggest thing, in my opinion, is driving on nitrogen. It's just going to save that tire that much more. You're going to wear better on that tire and everything else too.
The temperature in the tire is going to be, because of the where it's wearing on the patch, will be less. And there's just a huge number of benefits to having nitrogen in your tires.
Yeah, and it's not that expensive like it used to be years ago. I mean, like I said, NASCAR and everybody's been using it for years and stuff, but now they've got these machines and that do a great job. Now, if you don't get nitrogen from us, make sure when you ask them what percentage of nitrogen are you getting. If they can't tell you, they're not giving you the right part of nitrogen, because 78% of the normal air out there you're breathing today is nitrogen. And we get your tires all the way to 96%. Now, like I've said it before, I've played around. I can get it to 100. Keep cycling from that part. But, it's just like last night we was headed to Salina to go race, and I don't know, made me think about it. It's 100 and some degrees out and everything else like that. And I told Jake, I said, dang it, we haven't checked these tire pressures in a while in this trailer. Hit the old button. There they are. And guess what? Still running pretty good. Still up there at 115 pounds where they need to be. So that's pretty cool. Now, the other thing, Josh, I don't know if you've had the privilege of doing this, but now these tire sensors on that trailer are actually giving us the temperature of the tire right along with the pressure of the tire. That is so cool to see that running down the road. So anyway, good morning, Kyler Fetters. And Jeff Daniels talking about how he was driving here in the heat. And his pressure raised at 7-8 pounds on a 4-hour trip. Yeah, exactly. So,
I mean, you think about the inflation aspect of 7 or 8 pounds and the difference that's going to make. I mean, you talk about fuel efficiency, you talk about temperature of the tire, you talk about wear. Like, there's so many different effects that's going to have, handling characteristics of the tire, the ride, how smooth the ride is.
Yeah. Well, and here's the next thing everybody always gets worried about is too. So you got nitrogen in your tires, and let's say you do need to put air in your tires because they got low, because they're still going to leak with nitrogen. It's still going to happen. You still can't stop it, but it just slows the process down of how much it does leak out for you. Not a problem. Just put normal compressed air in it. It will mix just fine. And you just have to let us know when you come back that you had to put some compressed air in so we can go back and recycle that thing and get them back to that 96%.
Yeah.
And again, if you go to a shop and they tell you 93, that's still not good enough. I know that 3% doesn't seem like a lot, but when you start at 78 and you're getting 96, that last 3% is crucial. What it's going to do for those tires, how good it stays in those tires and everything else too.
You just get the full benefits of having it.
And then one last thing too, we didn't talk much about either, but it's minimal, but it's still there. Is most tires are made of steel. There's steel components inside of there. And as much as we have dryers on our compressed air and everything else like that, there's too humidity in our compressed air. But nitrogen is taking all that humidity out of that. And so you're not going to have a chance of that rusting. Now, granted, that's going to take a long time for that condensation or to do that, to move into that steel and corrode the steel or deteriorate the steel or whatever.
Just the other day, I had 2 tires with broken belts on 2 different vehicles. I hadn't seen that in quite a while, but yeah, just in the center of the treads of them. So that is a thing. It does happen for sure.
Exactly. So, hey, 316-462-3673. Hey, we'll love to hear from you. Anything ailing your car, tires, brakes, batteries, anything you want to talk about in the automobile world, or you want to get a debate going. Let's get one going. Love to hear from you. 316-462-3673. So anyway, Josh.
About racing, where are we at on that?
Well, we're off tonight. Went up to Salina last night with a new car for the first time at Salina and worked out a few bugs and stuff on it. And
so you run the new car last night?
Ran a new one last night. Ended up second. We just a little bit short. We should have had a little more effort there. And talking to Tanner on our way to Hayes, and we made it about 15 miles down the road before we realized Hayes had canceled. So we turned around and come home. But talking to Tanner, so we're still learning the car, the differences in the car from the new car to the old car and stuff. And we'll get her figured out. We'll be ready to go next week down at Salina, and then here in a couple weeks we're going to be headed back up to Boone. And so excited for that too, to see what we can have a better experience at Boone this year than last year.
So is he sold on the new car? If you gave him the option, which one is he jumping in?
I didn't ask him that, but I'm gonna tell you he's two different cars. They drive totally different and everything else like that. And when you go into that corner as fast as you're going, you got to have that confidence knowing that thing's going to turn.
Yeah,
so
I can understand that completely.
So I think it is. Once we get it dialed in, I think this new car is going to be better than it's got to be better than the old car. It just is. That old car has been around a long time. She's got a lot of wins underneath her, everything else too. But we'll get this new one dialed in, and I'm sure she'll be faster than the old car for sure. So
out of the gate, the new one's done pretty decent so far. I mean, brought home quite a few
2 seconds so far,
pretty close to wins.
Pretty close. Seconds the first loser, Josh. You know what I'm saying? So
it is, but I mean, it's not far enough back that it's not motivational, I guess. But
yeah, it's just. I think he said last night that's our 9th second place this year. So that's where it also gets being the 9th place, the first loser that many times. But
I can understand that.
That's part of the game. You got to keep digging. You got to keep going, and you can't get frustrated. You just got to put your head down and keep working.
So then where's the next race?
Next Friday would be at Salina.
Okay.
Is where we'll be at. And then I know we're thinking about headed up to La Crosse on next Saturday, but I got to figure out the logistics of that because we got to go to the Halstead Parade next Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
So I got to figure all that out too. So anyway, stay tuned for the racing side of the world. We'll keep you updated on what's happening. If you want to get over on Team 3J's page and like that, you'll get all the updates and everything as we go through the week and the weekend and stuff too. So anyway, Rex Strigero, have you seen the hydrogen muscle truck, 500 horsepower and 100% hydrogen, the future? Rex, I agree with you. Hydrogen is the future. No doubt in my mind. That's kind of where we're headed. So let's get a debate started because that's where we're headed. I mean, all these manufacturers right now, and it's not just Ford, it's every manufacturer pushing this electric. And my opinion is we don't have the
infrastructure.
Well, yeah, but I'm not so much worried about the infrastructure because we can put these chargers in our house and stuff. I'm more worried, in my opinion, right now, where we're at is the charge time to charge these things back up. And then some of the manufacturers don't have the range, very much range in these things to get them very far. Now, I think from what I can see out there and stuff like that, we're kind of on the leading edge a little bit of that, of some of the ranges we have and charge times we have and stuff too. But it's still not, in my opinion.
So
But again, I drove that one Lightning, just to and from work every day and plugged it in here. Never had a problem.
yeah, and we were talking about that a little because we did have the EV trainer here this
Yeah.
week, and I sat on one of those courses, and I was honestly unaware of what all that car was doing. So with the purchase of an EV, you get a subscription to Electrify America, which gives the consumer a lot of access to a lot of different things, but it integrates into the navigation of the car. And so when you're typing in your trip, it'll let you know where all the charging stations are, and where to stop, and how long you're going to be there, and the availability of that charging station, and what the kilowatt an hour cost is for each one of those charging stations. And I mean, there's just overwhelming amount of information through that. But what I didn't understand is when you go through and map your trip in that EV vehicle and say, okay, I'm going to leave here and go to Bartlesville and stop at that charging station down there. It goes through and it preconditions the car so that when you get to that charging station, that battery is able to accept more of a charge quicker. In other words, there's interactive grill shutters that it opens up, and to get the battery cooled down, and there's so much, and it's doing that, and it's mapping it out, so many minutes before you get to that station. Like the technology in these things, and what all it does that the consumer would never even know about,
Right.
is absolutely crazy. And
Yeah. And in my test, the one I did, we went to Denver, from here to Denver.
mhm.
And what it's just kind of crazy. Go to Salina, and it'll tell you how long you got to set there to charge. Or if you want to go on to Hayes, stops there and it'll tell you how much longer you got to charge there to do that, to get to the next station. Now, all this other stuff you just brought up, I didn't go through the test this time because I've been through it a couple times already. But that it does make sense that it's knowing where you're going, and all the technology is in there to help get that battery ready to go to charge and stuff. But again, that's my opinion right now, is we need some shorter charge times, but we need some longer range. From that part. But I think we'll get there in that part. But now, as we switch over to hydrogen, I don't know. I'm telling you, I'm kind of thinking that's kind of the ticket. I think a lot of manufacturers are working on that from that part. But think about hydrogen. I mean, wow. I mean, that's
so the safety factor obviously becomes a play when you're talking about hydrogen, and keeping everybody safe. I think but as far as it being an alternative fuel and stuff like that, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I don't know. My opinion, I wish all of our manufacturers would have been pushing more towards a hybrid and got us conditioned to which way we need to move. And instead of taking us from internal combustion engine, boom, into 100% electric. And granted, everybody's got a different hybrid system out there and everything else too. But I just wish we'd have focused more into the hybrid range, kind of got everybody kind of conditioned how those kind of work and everything else, and worked us more into that, instead of just shoving this electric down everyone's throat this quick and this fast. But again, you go back to our government is making these manufacturers hit these CAFE ratings that are, in my opinion, stupid. And the only way they can get there is these electric cars.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only way they can get there to do that. And I mean, that's where, people are out there posting how Ford's losing this billions of dollars on these electric cars right now. I'm sure they are. The amount of the development and everything else to put that in there. But again, if they don't hit that CAFE rating, what's that going to do to them?
They're not going to be able to sell
they're going to sell all the trucks we want to sell.
The F-150s and stuff like that. And so
exactly. So there's a catch-22 on each side of that. And, it's kind of one of those deals. You always got to kind of make sure you got all sides of the story before you start putting everything out there for what your opinion is and stuff. We all got opinions. We all got one too.
And I mean, the other side of that is there is a need for these vehicles, and that's one of the things that we talked about in the training, is that the person that purchases that car, the amount of research and development that they've done before they purchased it is huge. Somebody's not just going to go out and purchase a fully EV vehicle on a whim.
Right.
I don't believe. They're gonna have methodically thought out, okay, I drive this much a day, I can charge like this at home and at work or whatever, and that I do believe that it's a well thought out purchase, and there are applications where that vehicle or that fully EV vehicle works for people in their situations. I think of even businesses and things like that they don't drive a whole lot, and it's in town and stuff like that. I mean, if the vehicle fits your niche, it's perfect.
Yep.
It's just not a niche that works for everybody.
No, and that's kind of how I look at that difference between an SUV and a truck.
Mm-hmm.
What's your needs, what you got, and everything else too. Just like I said, when I was driving that Lightning, I drove it for 2,000 miles back and forth. And the only time I had an issue was when I had to go to Hutch, and I had 140 some miles of range, and it was cold out. And I will tell you, it
Yeah.
did freak me out a little bit, kind of watching that thing, make sure I was going to make it back. I did make it back. There was no problem and everything else too. But that's the next thing we got is everybody complains about when you're towing, how the range drops off. Well, wait a minute.
You're towing.
Wait a minute. When you're towing a gas engine, your mileage goes in half too.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's some of the reasoning we put out there and think, well, my God, the range just fell in half. Well, what did you expect it to do? Grow?
Yeah.
No, I mean, you're towing all that weight. It takes more energy to push it there. And if you take a truck you're towing, I mean, you get 20 miles a gallon empty, it's going to get 10 when you're towing. I mean, it's rational.
Yeah.
And I did that. I towed my boat with that Lightning from the dealership to the house, and it took off about half. But what do I expect? I mean, I got to pull that boat that far. It takes energy to do that.
Yeah.
But I still think that's where we're getting conditioned to where we need to be, getting some more technology in these cars, and getting some. I don't think the charge time would be as bad if the range was up there, like an internal combustion engine would be or whatever from that part. Because then you could drive to, say, Kansas City and be there for the day, and it can be plugged in somewhere, charged up, and you can drive all the way back home. And I think that's where some of the fear is can you drive that thing to Kansas City and not have to stop?
Sure.
Some cars, you're not going to make it there. You're going to get to stop at Emporia and have to sit there for an hour or two and charge it up and everything else too from that part.
Yeah. And then, we were talking about these DC fast chargers and what it does. And I don't know, I'm assuming, long term down the road, the manufacturer is going to come up, because there are some batteries that are more susceptible to the ability of the DC fast charger. And then there's other batteries that long term, if you did that repeatedly over and over, it wouldn't be as effective for the battery, and it would end up degrading the battery as well. And so, I know they're going to have stipulations long term down the road on what a consumer is able to do with that.
Well, and the analogy that one of the Ford reps gave us that one time there in Joshua in Kansas City made perfect sense. It's like charging a battery is blowing up a balloon. If you constantly just blow high pressure everything into that balloon, you're just weakening the membrane of that balloon.
Yeah.
But if you slowly push that charge into that balloon, it doesn't stretch that membrane, doesn't push it that hard, and everything else too. And changes everything. So when you go to those DC fast chargers, that's what they're doing. They're blowing that balloon up with a big old burst of charge, and you're hurting that battery. And I don't remember you hear so many different things and stuff like that too. But I also think that those batteries know and learn the technology to not take that charge as hard as you can
100%.
or whatever.
Yeah.
From that part. And Rex writes there, batteries are extremely wasteful. Hydrogen is 3 times cleaner than EV. I understand. I just don't think the technologies to mass produce the hydrogen is there. Do I think it's going to get there? Yeah, I do. I really do think the hydrogen is going to be another form of our combustion engines or whatever it might be from that part.
And we were talking about that, that the batteries, as far as, okay, it may get you through, because what's the long-term plan, in 5 years or 10 years or whatever, when you do have these hybrids running around on the road, and now you're to the point where, okay, the batteries need to be replaced. But I do believe that they've built a very durable product. But again, long-term, at some point, like, you're going to have replacement of batteries. It's going to happen.
Okay.
And then what do you do with that?
Yeah. And that's where Jeff's asking too. What's the battery life? The warranty's 10 years, right?
Yeah. The warranty is 10 years
from the manufacturer.
From the manufacturer on the battery. And then it will cover, if deemed by the manufacturer, degradation when it is under 70% of its capacity within that 10 years as well. And so there's a huge warranty behind these vehicles, and that's not just the battery, that's all of the hybrid components on it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and here's
But-
what I think, and some people are doing this already. I think we'll get to the point where we'll pull these batteries out and we'll replace the bad cells. It's going to be like
That
changing
is
oil or whatever.
correct. So
Some manufacturers, not shouldn't say
Yeah,
some
we-
shops are doing that already.
yeah, we if in situations, that's what we would do is
Yeah.
actually disassemble the battery and replace individual cells on the battery. And then also the manufacturer has developed a recycling program to that battery. In other words, if we pulled it out, they would, take it back and dispose of it, and recycle. I'm sure there's got to be waste there. There has to be. And
Yep.
I was talking with some of the advisors and stuff about it the other day, but it's just like putting an engine in a vehicle at, because we were talking about the expense of it, what the expense of a battery is. And, as honestly, some of these long block engines, I mean, you can get on the EcoBoost and stuff like that, or other manufacturers, you can get up to, 10 grand in a remanufactured engine for parts and labor and stuff like that.
So let's go after that. Let's take a consumer that drives 15,000 miles a year, and in 10 years he's got 150,000 miles on his car. Could an engine need to be replaced?
Yeah,
Sure could.
Yeah.
That's where some of the analogies that we're making is because there is a lot of unknowns out here yet, of like you're talking about the durability, length, and all that kind of thing, and where we're going to go. And I don't think the manufacturers know. I don't think the engineers know yet, because there's not been enough time out there for these things to develop. And I think what we're doing today and what we're looking at today is going to be different a year from now. It's going to be different in 3 years from now, 5 years, and 10 years. Is going to be a whole totally different what we're looking at, because we're going to learn so much more about it.
So I take this. We sold a C-Max. I think 2013 was the first year of the C-Max that was an electric, had the battery in it and stuff. And I mean, we have a couple of those units in operation, and I can't think of a single battery that we've had to put in it. Now I don't know, just as far as unit in operation, obviously it's a very low number. I'd be curious to know how many of those vehicles they sold versus how many of them have had a component that needed to be replaced, whether any hybrid component. But there is data out there, I think, for them. Now I don't know how much as far as quantity and how accurate and stuff like that, but
and I would think that the technology, it's like you talked about the technology already, of conditioning these batteries, when you get into the charge station. Back in 13, that I don't think that was even close, close to even being there, let alone the maps that map you where you need to go from that. But again, we're going to learn so much more as we progress through these situations and what goes on with that. But I also think we jump to conclusions too quickly till we really analyze it. Just like replacing a motor versus replacing a battery. What's the difference? So a battery costs 10 grand, a motor costs 10 grand.
Yeah.
But the other thing you got to think about there too for a minute, you got a transmission set in there too.
Yeah.
Okay. And an engine. So there's pros and cons all over. And it's like you said, Josh, is this electric works for some people. It doesn't work for everybody. That's why we have a truck. That's why we have an SUV. That's why we got different SUVs. That's why we got different trucks. Everybody needs some different application for what needs to make them get there from that part. And do I see the future in hydrogen? Oh, and you know what? I could be wrong, but I still think there's a huge niche coming for nitrogen, for hydrogen. I do. But again, I'm not the guys up there in Detroit and all these manufacturers running these, making these decisions, what they're going to do. And I don't see all their sides of why they're making the decisions they're making. I can only assume from what I know and what I see and what I find and everything else from that part. But I'm sure there's a lot of other things going on in the background on that side of the coin we don't have a clue about. What the government is mandating on them, all the laws they got to do, and all the testing they got to do, and all the stuff they've got to be mandated from NHTSA. How about recalls? I mean, holy smokes, from that part. So anyway, anybody got any questions, any comments on hydrogen or electric cars? Love to hear from you. 316-462-3673. And
recalls is another thing that we can talk about. We've got Explorers that are stop sell because of a backup camera. Like how, I don't know, to me that just blows my mind. That so they've issued that all vehicles, and I think it was produced in 2020. It was either 21 or 22. This is across all manufacturers, that the vehicle has to have a backup camera in it. Now, I mean, I get the the reasoning, or that it is safer to back up and stuff like that, and to see what's behind you and not
Yep.
hit anybody or run anybody over. But the fact that you cannot sell a vehicle because there's a recall on the backup camera system just blows me away. Absolutely blows me away. I mean, I think at some point there's a point where you've gone too far, and I think we're too far.
I think that's the one that
You
is
know.
too far. Why we can't, these Explorers and you know, and again, I use the heck out of a backup camera. I use it every day. I get it, but why we have to have that mandated and can't sell those Explorers because of a backup camera recall? You're right. Blows me away. Blows me away. So,
Well, and I mean, there's other recalls out there that I think are very similar in reasoning, or why, things like that, that just it's like they don't make sense. It's like somebody human is not making that decision,
Well,
or
yeah.
somebody with the thought process of it. And I mean, I guess I get it. So
Oh, I don't know. I don't get it, Josh.
You got-
I don't get that either,
that's the
dude.
rules, and you got to play by them. I guess that's what.
And that's what I'm saying.
We
We know what we see on our end of the deal. We don't like the fact that we
Yeah.
can't sell these Explorers with that stop sell recall on those things. But we don't see what's going on the other side. The government or the NHTSA might be pushing something demand down so hard to those guys on that situation from that part. Now, I will tell you, the other day I had to go in on some of the Explorer stock orders and take off the 360 view cameras. I thought it was just strictly, maybe it was supply and demand again. We're still fighting this stupid supply chain. We're fighting with parts and everything else too. But who knows? That might be part of the recall. What's happening there on that part? You know what I mean?
And it's I know they're looking at it from the perspective of as a safety thing, and if it saves one life, so then it was well worth it, but I don't know. That just at some point the human element has to come back into this, I think, and look at the perspective from the whole thing.
Yeah, agree with you 100%. 100% on that too. So anyway, we're running out of time and everything else from that part too. Hey, Jeff Daniel, you bet. Thanks for letting us take care of you, getting your expedition all taken care of very much too. So, Tim, transit vehicles in LA run on hydrogen, have been for years. They have stations for dispensing. Huh, didn't know that either.
How about a driverless Uber? Would you get in one of
Absolutely
them?
not.
No, wouldn't do it.
No,
Huh?
absolutely not. I got to have control, baby. Driverless Uber.
Yeah.
I'm out.
No.
You?
I mean, I wouldn't have any
You got a
interest in it.
5-point harness and a helmet for me to save me in case that thing crashes or runs into somebody?
I wonder, is anybody out there ever rode in one of those? They're running around out there.
Yeah.
That yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say I wouldn't get in one, but it certainly wouldn't be my favorite thing to do. I don't know.
Can't tell how nervous I'd be in there. I hate riding in a car, let alone with somebody not being in there to tell me where I'm going.
Yeah, would agree with that completely.
Yeah. So anyway, so we'll have to address some more. I gotta have to get more moved up on get a little more knowledge going on hydrogen too. I don't know much about them or whatever either, but it sounds to me like I still think that's the way of the world. I think that's where we're going to head. I think that's where we'll be. But who knows? I could be wrong. We could be doing something different, but we will be doing something different down the road. I'm going to promise you that. So anyway, Brian, saw a bunch in San Francisco on my last trip. Yeah, I bet you Brian Choi saw some Uberless drivers.
Oh yeah,
people putting traffic cones on the hood to disable them. Yeah, that's why I don't need to be in a driverless Uber.
No,
it'd probably strand me somewhere and be in trouble. So
those that was other Uber drivers putting traffic cones on
so they keep their job, right?
Yeah, so they keep their job is what that was.
Yeah, exactly. So hey, anyway, everybody, Josh, we've had enough debate here. I wish we could get some more debate going on, but it is what it is too. And we need to thank a couple great people that help us keep this show going each and every week, which is BG Products. And I've been using those products since 1987. Love it. They're right here in Wichita. Love all the great things they do for us. They're not a fan of the electric cars. I'll promise you that, Josh. You know what I'm saying? But who knows? So anyway, thanks, BG, for everything you do. Thanks for the great partnership we have. And we love giving you the vehicles to go do your testing and keep things up to date for us and everything else too. Big Corner Carady for all your advertising needs. Anything you need to help advertise your business, from web page design, vehicle wraps, window wraps, race car wraps, window tint. Anything that'll help your business go, as those guys say down there, just Google us. go to rent. Hey, Stan's got a great fleet of vehicles over there. Summertime, it's winding down, Josh. It's August. School's about ready to start, everything else like that. I'm ready to get in the calls to rent the vans for schools and everything else too. So if you need something to drive, you don't want to put the miles in your car, need something bigger or whatever, give Stan a call right inside here at Go To Rent. And hey, everybody, have a great Saturday. We'll talk to you next Saturday. Oh, hey, we'll be next Saturday. We'll be in Halstead, buddy.
Oh, there we go. Old Settlers.
The big time, the biggest little city in Kansas.
There we
Here
go.
we come. We'll be down at Old Settlers, and we'll be in the parade and stuff too. Halstead Car Show too. Don't forget about that. We got a great car show there at the Scout Cabin again, and there's some great trophies. They brought them by yesterday for me to see them. They're pretty cool. So, got a hot rod you want to put in the car show at Halstead? You better go over there and get her done. Everybody have a great Saturday. We'll talk to you next Saturday.